Good morning and welcome to the Sunshine Coast Regional District's Committee of the Whole on Thursday, March the 19th, 2026. We are meeting here in the territories of the Sechelt and Squamish nations. We have an agenda before us. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda? Moved, seconded. Not seeing any changes either, so calling the question, all those in favor? We have an agenda. I would also like a motion to receive all reports and communications. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. We're ready to roll. First up, we have a delegation from Chris Hergesheimer, Sunshine Coast Resource Center. And over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair, Directors. Pleasure to be here. I've sat before this committee with numerous different hats over the years, but here I'm here to talk this morning about an information-only delegation on the Sunshine Coast Community Action Team. So if you hear the cat, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Can you see my slides? Okay, there they are. Yeah, so of course want to acknowledge that we are on the traditional unceded and ancestral territories of both Sechelt and Squamish, and we honor these peoples, and in context of this presentation would also like to acknowledge the disproportionate impacts as a result of historical legacies and continuing colonialism in the way that we know it. So what is the CAT? There's a long definition here, but the goal is really to save lives of especially people who have been impacted by the toxic drug emergency. As you may or may not know, April 14th marks 10 years since the government of British Columbia declared this public health emergency, and the number now sits at close to 18,000 individuals who have died in the last 10 years alone. So our goal is to be out in the community, doing the work, multi-stakeholder, different methods to break stigma and save lives, get preventable drug deaths to zero. So first established 2018, community action teams operate all across the province. They are the government funded. There's 36 of them. They're funded by the Community Action Initiative. And the goal is really collective impact. So the government recognized that individuals and communities know their people and know their context, and wanted to bring together health providers, government, social service agencies, citizen activists, peers to do this work in the context of unique communities. We had one in 2018, was first launched here, and then some operational challenges. It was put on hold for a couple of years, and in 2024, the Resource Center was identified as the fiscal agent. Thank you to the Sunshine Coast Resource Center for stepping up. And then a CAT steering committee was built to make sure the governance was strong and that the decision-making and the work plan was in line with all these needs. And in the fall, we launched the new CAT here on the Sunshine Coast. And so this is our steering committee right now, consisting of 8 different partners and some special guests and experts when time calls for it. So I want to just take this minute, a quarter into my presentation, to say that this crisis cuts across demographics and socioeconomic lines. Many times we have a vision in our mind of the people who are most affected by this crisis, but if we follow the data and the numbers that are released by the coroner, we see interesting trends, being that the vast majority of these overdoses, let's call them what they are, poisonings, are happening in private residences. Men are severely overrepresented in this, and specific industries, men working in the trades and transport industry, being alone in private residences with this increasingly and unpredictable toxic drug supply that's where we're seeing the numbers. We're also seeing youth impacted by this, as well as some of our other individuals in supportive housing and shelter and encampment environments. So I want to just make sure we understand that, what is often visible is not fully representative of the scope of this crisis and the people who are impacted by it. Some tentative good news: mortality is decreasing over the last couple of years. This year we're down 21% over last year and down 30% over the year 2024. And I want to acknowledge that there's a number of variables that are contributing to that: the changing nature of the drug supply, the method by which people are using, the prevalence of safe consumption sites. So really a variety of things. What we're doing is working. And I think now is the time to double down, to not take our foot off the gas and really just use our collective impact to focus on this goal of 0. We don't need to have 8 or 9 or 14 or 6. We can have 0 if we're all pushing the same direction and we all have the same goal in mind. And I also want to acknowledge something that my peer coordinator mentioned the other day. Part of the reason that we're seeing this decrease across the province is the amazing work that peers and frontline workers are doing in their own community. People with lived and living experience who are trained, who are training one another, who are there for their people. And they were at the beginning of this, long before it was declared a public health emergency officially, and they are there right now doing the work. And sometimes they don't get the props that they deserve, and I want to acknowledge the extremely hard work that our frontline workers and our peers are doing to bring these numbers down. Fentanyl is still driving mortality, present in 77% of supplies, slightly down from years before. But as we can see, back in 2014, it was really, a quarter of samples were showing that, and now we're looking at close to 80%. So it's a very, very unpredictable and toxic supply that even is changing by the month as new risks enter that supply. So how do we do this work that we do? I want to acknowledge that we're not health. It's not health work. We're not meant to fill service gaps that the health authorities do, but the first side of our work is really health sector interventions or health adjacent interventions. So naloxone training, Narcan training, overdose prevention sites, case management, and an emphasis on treatment and recovery. And that has been something that we've taken a focus on in this new CAT, really working on what are those partnerships and how do we drive this possibility for easy access to treatment and recovery, accessible, and the wraparound supports that come after that in order to maintain stability when you've been through that program. And so a lot of people see the CAT as doing this work, but from a community development lens and a sociocultural lens, we understand that the social and community context of this work really matters, and we focus on peer employment and empowerment, and number 7 being a huge one, addressing stigma and discrimination and human rights. It's very, very difficult to move together, to rally community support, to do this work, to reach that 0 when we are othering and excluding individuals, and stigma is a very, very pervasive barrier, not only to our ability to do this work, but to people's ability to go through treatment, to have recovery, to access these services that we need them to do to save lives. So we're really looking at health sector interventions, and then we're looking at things as basic as housing and income security and food security, which really provide those longer term lasting context for success and support in society. So these two things work together, and focusing only on one or focus on the other is not going to get us the results we deserve. So we have to jump back and forth, and that's where the multi-sector nature of the steering committee comes into play with those health experts, with those social service experts, with those peers with lived and living experience who can help us balance our efforts and initiatives. We have a number of events coming up April 13th to 19th to mark this 10-year anniversary, and rather than having one event on April 14th, 10 years on, we've decided to have 6 or 7 different events. So there's different ways for our community and our region to get involved. There's films, there's keynotes, there's music, There's a grief and vigils. So there's a lot of doorways for people to enter because we really need people to come into this work, and we're willing to meet them where they're at to get that collective impact that we want. So thank you. We thank our peers and our steering committee members, and thank you for receiving this information. So we just want you to understand what is going on, what our mission is, what we're trying to do, and when you see all these events out in the community, April 13th to 19th, that you'll have the context that we are 10 years on, and this is a preventable issue that if we are working together, we can leverage our collective impact and we can deal with this here in our own community. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And do directors have any questions? Director Stanford.
Chris, I just want to thank you so much for this. It just bringing this awareness back again and again. And I hope that we can all participate and be a part of this. I hate to call it an anniversary, but we just have to keep the pressure on and keep the importance on. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. And we can't control necessarily what happens at the provincial level, but we do have a lot of power in our own community. And part of that really just comes from an inclusion mindset and our ability to work together. So thank you.
Director Toth.
Thank you, Chair. I really don't have any questions. Thank you, Chris. I've mentioned it in the past. My brother was one of those statistics in 2018. So I will always have time for the sort of work that you and folks in the sector are doing. Just thank you. Thank you so much for what you're doing. I know from things that we hear through other channels, that work is making a difference. And I'm sure you hear it all the time as well, but I'm really glad to hear about success stories that other people are having. So thank you.
Director White.
Yeah, I guess I was there through that dip, unfortunately, where we didn't have a cat, and worked really hard to get it back going again, along with some other community members. So it's so great to see the resource center, especially stepping up, and you as a staff person in the resource center fitting it into your duties, and it's back up and running, and I think with a lot of the support behind it now, it's stronger than ever, even though it's just starting to get back up on its legs again. So this is exciting to have you here, actually, because there's been a lot of times I've been wondering the last couple of years that when would we ever get to this moment? So thank you for making this presentation. I wanted to ask a question of staff that just occurred to me during the presentation, just because it's always kind of in different contexts. It's like, well, how can we all hear this message and make sure we're all behind it? And that is about the availability of naloxone in our recreation centers and training as well for administering naloxone. Is that? And I know the CAT works on that with agencies like and local governments like the SCRD. So I mean, I could also ask Chris. About that first, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that question. I'm not sure about the availability or what kind of trainings the staff have had at those facilities, but that is definitely something we would be interested in doing, could actualize very, very quickly. And we've been going around and talking to all different kinds of people. Back to my point about this is, this does not discriminate. And so the more places that understand what that kit is, that know how to use it, that feel comfortable using it, it just is putting more resources into the hands of community. So if you want to find out what the level of training is there and what you might need, that's something we could actualize very, very quickly for staff.
I'll leave it at that because it's, yeah, we know the opportunities there, and I'm asking this question out of the blue, so maybe we can get in touch afterwards and find out if there's if that could be a benefit to our facilities here. Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Director Bax.
Thank you. Thanks again, Chris. Thanks for being there. Thanks for steering this committee to do the work that they do. I've had the honor of going to a few of the meetings over the last 6 or so months or year, whatever it is. And at our last meeting together, there was an announcement about the naloxone inhalant that is being funded by the provincial government up to the tune of about $5 million. And I don't know, do you know if there's a timeline for the rollout of that? Nothing yet?
Nothing yet. It won't be immediate. It might take a couple of years before we see that level, like the 40 or 50% prediction that they hope.
Yeah,
But,
and as a former firefighter, I'm fairly well trained up with the naloxone and how to administer it. And I've got 2 kits in my car, and I make sure that my son has kits. And it's really unfortunate that the approach that the work that you're doing is absolutely vital, but the approach that the provincial government has been doing has kind of been spotty. I find that when they put one finger out to help and it doesn't work, they pull that finger back, and then they put another finger out to help. And when we need the whole hand to help, we need housing, we need treatments, we need a plethora of things that all at once, and we can't just do it piecemeal.
Yeah.
So thank you for your work that you're doing, and I know it's making a difference.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And I'm going to jump in with a question. As you pointed out, a large portion of the people who overdose are home, alone. And looks to me like a lot of your program is aimed at people who are, if I might say, down and out. They've already hit a bad place, but what are you trying to do to reach the invisible portion of the iceberg? All those people who are who have a home, who are employed, who, are just not visible to the community.
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, for the last 8 months, our intention has been to distribute our efforts away from certain populations that have received. They actually have a significant amount of supports, ops and workers and mental health supports. And so, for example, in April, we're bringing a fellow who runs an organization called the Tailgate Toolbox. He comes from the trades himself, 8 years in recovery, and he works specifically with managers at large companies to have conversations about shift work and overtime and pain and the stresses of that, and really trying to break down that stigma at the trades and transport in a male-dominated industry. We're also looking to hire a young person between the ages of 18 and 25 who's out in the scene, at the punk shows, at the DJ shows, who's brave enough to have those conversations with their peers about, let's take 10 minutes and test that, because the don't do it is not working. We need to be talking about risk mitigation, and we need to be talking about harm reduction, and a brave youth who's able to be in that scene and never reduce the risk to zero, but bring it significantly down. And then, of course, there's a seniors element to this too. And there are apps to use at home, where you can check in if you're using alone. But once again, back to the idea of stigma, we need to get that stigma down so that the idea of, getting tested, checking in with your friend when you are at home and you're looking to unwind, or you're just ready to party once every 2 months, that isn't there, because these are very, very preventable things, but stigma remains. So we have a lot of diversified efforts to try to reach those other populations. And as Kelly said, we need to be using every tool in our toolbox, and we haven't always been doing that. And this is not a 5-year thing or a strategic plan for 10 years. This is a now, and to act on use all the levers and all the tools we have, and we can get that number down significantly in our region. So thanks.
Thank you. And I would just encourage you to keep local electeds informed about some of these programs that are available. A few years ago, I looked into what kind of services are available for the genteel addiction, and it was dismal. It was absolutely dismal. It was insulting, frankly. So, you know, I'm glad to hear that there are better efforts being made. Director Gabius.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to Mr. Hergesheimer for informing us on what's happening in our community. Very important for us to know what's happening on the ground, so thank you very much for that. That's very informative. I'm wondering, how does the CAT intersect with local governments? I'm thinking specifically District of Sechelt and Town of Gibsons. Like, how are you collaborating? Yes, whether it's someone from, yeah, I see. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
It's absolutely crucial that local government not only is informed, but has presence, whether on the steering committee or at the large community meetings. The CAT can operate in ways that government cannot in certain ways, but we need government support and we need them to understand the legitimacy of the work. There's no ask in terms of what we need other than if you see some of these events coming up in April and you're at all curious, I would encourage you to attend one or more, depending on the way you want to come into that conversation and that remembrance and that effort and that thanks for our workers who are doing this in our own community. So,
Thank you. Okay, last call. Any questions? Not seeing any, so thank you very much for attending.
yeah, thank you, directors.
And, okay, next item up is Water Efficiency Plan. I guess that's a WEP. Implementation options. And I look forward to GM Rosenboom. And, Graham, Manager Starsage.
Okay, through the chair, the purpose of this report and presentation is to ask for board direction on how to proceed with the development of a water efficiency plan. The development of a water efficiency plan is one of the implementation items included in the SCRD's 10-year water strategy that was adopted last fall. Why is the water strategy important? The water strategy was built through years of community and intergovernmental engagement. It provides a clear long-term framework for ensuring a safe, reliable, and resilient water supply amid growing pressures from climate change, aging infrastructure, and regional growth. The strategy aligns with the board's strategic plan. It supports regulatory compliance, financial sustainability, guides major investments, protects water resources, manages risks, and stewards water responsibility for current and future Sunshine Coast communities. The water strategy identifies 4 strategic priorities, which you can see in the graph, to be actioned through 3 plans: the Water Infrastructure Master Plan, the Source Water Plan, and our focus today, the Water Efficiency Plan. Water efficiency is chosen as one of the core pillars of the water strategy because using water more efficiently supports environmental stewardship and financial sustainability. How do we, next slide. So. Oh, here, this button. One second. I think this is just one of them.
It is not PowerPoint.
No.
Can you close it and open it? Yeah, maybe. Right mouse click.
Yeah, okay, short break.
Yes.
We'll take a short break, back in 5 minutes.
This is not.
It's just like a screenshot.
Lori, this is not the file. This is not the PowerPoint. This is only the first page.
Okay, we are resuming Committee of the Whole after a short break for technical adjustments. Over to staff.
All right, thank you everyone for your patience. Let's just revisit this first slide. The water strategy was important because it can guide our overall approach to sustainable water services for the next 10 years. And now we're going to specifically talk about the water efficiency plan. What does the water efficiency plan encompass and why is it important? The what? The water strategy sets the goal for the water efficiency plan, which you can see on the screen, to improve water demand management and increase the efficiency of drinking water through meter installation, volumetric billing, community education, water data analysis, and program and policy development. The water strategy also outlines 17 water efficiency actions for the SCRD to implement during the 10-year term of the strategy. These actions are detailed in Attachment A of the report. Shown on the slide are the program areas within which the actions will take place. For a high-level overview, universal metering and advanced metering infrastructure, or AMI, includes making sure every property has a working meter which is being read and billed correctly. Water data management includes accurately measuring and analyzing water data to support programs, operations, and planning. Volumetric billing includes developing rate structures which reduce peak demand and reward efficiency. Leak resolution in non-revenue water includes reducing customer side and supply side water loss, optimizing system efficiency. Water literacy and rebates includes things you may be familiar with: monthly water use updates, MySCRD's online portal, web resources, education and outreach, and rainwater harvesting rebates. Policy and SCRD operations includes exploring non-potable resources for parks and ice rinks, improving water efficiency at SCRD facilities, updating the OCP, and the recent update to Bylaw 778. These program elements, unified under a water efficiency plan, work together to reduce water waste, improve how water use is measured and managed, and increase community water stewardship. The why? Water efficiency planning is important because reducing and managing demand is a cost-effective and resilient way to improve water security. Every liter of water saved is a liter that does not need to be collected, treated, pumped, or stored. By making better use of existing water supply, the plan helps extend system capacity, increase the amount of water available during summer months, improve drought and emergency resilience, and delay or avoid the need for costly new water supply or infrastructure projects. This slide shows a summary of past efficiency efforts and how the first two phases of Option 1 would be implemented. Historically, water efficiency on the Sunshine Coast relied primarily on education, voluntary behavioral change, and seasonal restrictions. However, with universal metering now in place and volumetric billing underway, the SCRD can accurately measure and assess water use across its systems in a way it couldn't before. As a result, water efficiency is no longer limited to outreach activities. It can now become a core function that supports water stewardship, service planning, and decision-making. A basis for this change is enhanced water data management, a central component of Phase 1. Enhanced use of water data will support volumetric billing rate setting, identification of system and billing losses, operational improvements, and evaluation of program effectiveness. By enhancing water data management, better data will be available to support program and operational development. It will also support planning and decision-making. Completed in the first phase, enhanced water data management will also support developing water efficiency targets to be considered as part of the plan review proposed in phase 2. Why is the plan phased? Phased implementation of option 1 is recommended to ensure that the most cost-effective and impactful measures are being prioritized while minimizing the financial implications of doing so. A phased approach will allow the SCRD to adapt as customer behavior responds to volumetric billing, rather than making long-term commitments prematurely. In summary, proceeding with option 1 builds on the numerous existing initiatives, including metering, volumetric billing, water data management, conservation regulations, leak resolution, rebates, and water literacy programs, with a strong focus placed on measuring water use, reducing losses, and increasing water literacy. Option 2 is similar to option 1, but speeds up the development of a comprehensive non-revenue water program and the exploration of AMI. So we staff are happy to answer any questions you might have. There was a few here that we prepared in advance, questions about volumetric billing, non-revenue water, and AMI, but sort of open the floor to the directors. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm just going to ask an initial question, which, what is the process for the development of this plan? Is it strictly an internal staff-led process, or is there stakeholder consultation involved?
Thank you for the question. The plan has been actually in the making as long as the water strategy itself has been in the making. We have had extensive consultation on components of the plan with WASAC while it was still active. And we always had it sitting in the wings until the water strategy itself was finalized. So that was completed last year. So the plan itself has been based on a consultation with WASAC and a lot of input we received through the engagement as part of the water strategy development itself. We have not engaged with the community specifically on the water strategy document as it's presented here in front today.
Thank you. I'm Director Shepherd.
Thanks very much through the chair. I wonder if I could ask the question. So just to straighten this out in my own mind, the only difference between option 1 and option 2 is the speed at which these same steps are brought forward. So the downside is that to option 2 is that you're trying to do too much too quickly. Is that accurate?
Yeah, thank you, Sir Chair. Yes, that's correct. And option 1 might have very limited financial and organizational implications, while option 2 might have.
Thank you. Director Stanford.
Thank you through the chair. Can you just describe a little bit more how you see the more effective use of the meter reading? You said you want to move beyond drive-by readings. How is that going to work? And then the second part of my question is, do you contemplate further use of artificial intelligence in this type of strategy moving forward? Is that being contemplated?
So through the chair, to the first part of the question, currently we have automated meter reading where we have to collect the reads by driving past in a car with the receiver. Advanced metering infrastructure, or AMI, it's a bit of a mouthful, means to put collectors throughout the community on towers that hear the radio signals continuously and upload it to the cloud so the data is available in real time. To understand how we could advance that, in phase 1 that's proposed that we undertake a feasibility study that's offered free of charge. We don't know anything beyond that at this point about how that would look.
Thank you. And maybe to add to that, currently the SRD is moving towards that everybody with a metered account will be able to read their meters on a monthly basis through my SRD, the webpage. So that will be available. That is currently available for everybody in North and South Pender, and it will be available for the regional water system users later. So, but that's monthly data. AMI will allow for real time for daily, and maybe even more than daily. So that is a benefit of potentially switching to AMI. And we have to realize, given the size of our the area covered, it might not be feasible in all areas. Maybe downtown Seashore, yes, but in a very rural area, Upper Roberts Creek might be not. So we have to confirm what's possible there. In terms of and the benefit of that is the more data we provide to customers, the more we increase water literacy, the more people are aware. Just like with BC Hydro, if you can check what your data use is yesterday, and you know that you had your dryer going on yesterday, then you might make a link to the data, the amount you pay, and actual use of the dryer. Same with water. AI, the SRD is currently exploring policies and approaches to how to implement AI within the organization. So I can't confirm yes or no yet to your question. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Gabius.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I favor this phased approach. I think that's the smart way to go, in my opinion. I think there's already so much going on, especially I'm thinking volumetric billing. The implementation is going to be, that's a big project that will require a lot of communications. And I think to have a phased approach will allow us to be a bit more nimble and maybe adapt as data becomes more available. So I do have some questions, but I'll start by moving the recommendation. I should have got the page number before I started talking. Oh, here we go, on page 2 of the agenda.
Okay, and I see a seconder.
Yeah. And I do have a question. Has there been an uptick in the rebates for rainwater collection in North and South Pender since the implementation of the mock bill last year and volumetric billing this year?
Through the chair, the rainwater rebates are somewhat proportional to the size of the water service because the funding comes from the user fees. So there's a very small amount of funding available in North and South Pender. But in South Pender last year, there was an increase. Yeah.
Thank you. Director White.
I'll just, what I can do here is, the member of the board not being in a function is just offer the Gibson's experience. And I mean, one thing I can say is it's well known how much Gibson's managed to reduce water consumption based on metering and volumetric billing, and that was all with technology from 10 years ago, or roughly. So, this is great that the SCRD is exploring all the technology available now, and we're now at a point where we're upgrading our meters too, that just happened at my house a couple weeks ago. But I haven't been told it's like AMI technology yet even. So I think it is that, basically up to what option 1 is now here. So just wanted to share that with the board that a considerable reduction can happen even with the technology that was available a decade ago. So I think you're going to get your money's worth through option 1 here.
Thank you. I was just going to comment that the broad goals of the plan are straightforward, and we have seen all of these before. This is not unfamiliar territory. But I assume we are going to see a draft WEP in, it says Q2 2026. Will there be a chance to sort of look at it for some of the nuances? I appreciate that we want to reduce outdoor water use. It makes sense. But our own summer watering regulations differentiate, for instance, between ornamental shrubs and food-growing crops. And so I just have a concern that we also address some other community priorities as well, such as, food security. In our approach, we have tons of room to reduce water usage. And I recognize that in my own household as well as other places. But at the same time, we do not have a water shortage in the wintertime. And we have all the infrastructure there so that I can wash my siding. So I want to understand the goals in a more detailed way, and I look forward to seeing the plan. I don't know if you have any comments on that.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. In terms of the water conservation regulations and what is allowed under which stage, those are currently regulated by bylaw. They're as part of bylaw 778 in Appendix J. So there are currently no process on the way to review those at this point in time.
So I'll follow up. So will we see a draft plan or will we see a final plan?
A draft plan will be presented to you.
Thank you. And with luck, we will be able to get it through before the end of our term because we would like to do that because this is important. Director Gabius.
Yes, and I realized we could vote first, and then I can ask some more questions after. But while I'm talking, I love this plan. Like this puts power in the hands of the community on the ground. We can all be part of the solution. It's really awesome, and a lot of the water usage. The outdoor water usage is mainly the problem in the summer, and I'm wondering if there's partnerships or if there's ways to work, or if staff is already working with garden centers on the coast to help educate people as to like water smart plans, or like is there a partnership happening there through this plan perhaps?
Staff.
Through the chair. So great question. In the past, we have attended events at garden centers, promoted things like rainwater rebates. One of the goals of the plan right now is to focus on using the data from the Universal Metering Project and coupling that with volumetric billing to really increase the water literacy of the community. These were the levers we didn't have in the past. By raising everyone's awareness about their water use, and by attaching that to an incentive to reward efficiency, we're hoping to see a dip in demand, which will, prevent the increase in high levels of conservation stages, which will allow people to do the lifestyles that they want. That's going to take a few years to work out. The education and outreach initiatives, that's the only thing we were able to do in the past because we didn't have meters. So by focusing on the meters and the volumetric billing and the data management at the start, we're going to then be able to build stronger literacy programs, which is going to, and then have these incentives for people to change their behaviors.
Great, thank you. I'm just going to jump in for one minute here to say, at the Elphinstone Community Association meeting last night, the guest speakers were from Quality Farm, and they were talking about the changing climate, and how people should be thinking about more. They didn't go all the way to xeriscaping, but you know, about the types of plants and the resilience and the water use. And it is a topic of considerable interest right now. There's also a lot of people with ravaged lawns who may be rethinking their lawn strategy. So perhaps once in a generation opportunity there too. Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to ask this later on, but I'll ask it now. When we develop a leak in one of the homeowners, we generally will give them a graph showing why we believe there's a leak. Will having real-time data collection make this cheaper and easier for us?
Through the chair.
Yeah.
The first step is to complete a feasibility study to understand what the cost and impact of advanced metering infrastructure would be and bring that back to the board, because we don't have a scope right now. In terms of the ability of an AMI program, yes, it could notify a customer if there was continuous flow. It could set consumption alerts. It could email people when they'd gone over their base rate thresholds. There's a lot of opportunities in that, but we need to investigate what that potential is before we get started too far down the road. We do work with customers who have continuous flow flags, and we send them their leak letters, and those who are on the volumetric billing will be able to see that with their bill, and they can see on my SCRD online portal if they have a customer message, it's called, which would show a continuous flow flag. And they can call us or email us, and we have staff that support them through leak resolution.
Thank you. I was
Great.
afraid that was the answer, actually.
Okay, anyone else? We have a motion on the floor. Seeing no further hands, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Well, look, we're already at item 4.2. Archaeology monitoring permit renewal. Oh, look, it's it's GM Rosenboom.
Thank you, Chair. In front of you is a report about our renewal for our archaeological permit to undertake archaeological assessments under the Heritage Conservation Act. The Heritage Conservation Act is the act that regulates how archaeological objects that could be found during ground disturbing activities are being protected. And under that permit, any ground disturbing activity should be conducted in such a way that those artifacts are being protected, and there's a permit process in place for that. Given that the SRD is undertaking a large variety and a huge amount of ground disturbing activities, primarily within the water, wastewater, parks, as well as sometimes in other areas, ports, including ports. We've been, over the last number of years, we've been having a multi-assessment permit under the regulation. What it requires us, what it allows us, is to have a way more cost-efficient way and expedited way to get our permits in place and to get the approval and the assessments completed to undertake those activities and to avoid long-term delays on projects. There's while it's very effective and very cost-efficient, and we've confirmed that it is still for the SRD the most cost-efficient approach moving forward, we've seen an increase in costs associated with archaeological assessments over the last several years, in part due to the fact that we're just doing more projects, including, for example, meter installation projects, etc. Those are, of course, big spikes, but across the board, we've been undertaking more projects that requires ground disturbing activities. But we've also, so that led us to recommend a recommendation to explore cost efficiencies in the process itself, and that would require collaboration with the nations with an interest in the area, as well as our archaeological consultant. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. You said the magic words, cost efficient. On the recommendation, it says to apply for the multi-use assessment permit. Is there a time? Is that like a 5-year permit, or is it an indefinite time?
Thank you. It's a 3-year permit. We applied 3 years ago. That was our second or third time that we applied, and our current permit is expiring this summer. So hence this report is in front of you right now.
Thank you. Director Bax.
Yeah, I'm very much in favor of this type of thing. If we can get efficiencies through the provincial government, that's great. There's been a delay in the implementation of the changes to the Heritage Conservation Act, and I don't know if anyone here can answer the question if that will have an impact on this program.
Go ahead.
Thank you. The permit is for 3 years, and we've confirmed with our consultant that if the act were to change within that time frame and that would have an impact on the permit, there will be, of course, conversation with the permitting agency on how that were to occur. But so it's up to 3 years, and if there's changes in the meantime, then those, I think, would apply to those permits as well. But of course, that's up to the province if they want to grandfather permits or if the new regulations would apply.
Thank you. Director Stanford.
Thank you, Chair. This is more of an operational question for the current setup. Is if we have this in place, how does this work? And for instance, we have a couple of projects, I'm thinking projects on Keats Island, that are in a sort of delay point, and part of the reason is because of permits for archaeology, as far as I understand. Or is there a different, am I not interpreting this correctly? Why, if we have this in place, would we be having delays? Is it based on specific findings?
Question. Go ahead.
Thank you. The multi-assessment permits are intended for projects that we undertake on a routine basis. So there might be situations where the Heritage Conservation Branch is expressing concerns with that it is outside of the scope of a regular routine operations. So that could result in a delay. Second component of delays, of course, the actual work that is the actual assessment itself. And sometimes it's desktop study, sometimes it's a variety of intensity of field work that's being conducted. And then it totally depends on the availability of archaeological staff, of course, to undertake those, especially field assessments. But one of the benefits of having this relationship with the consultant is that usually there's some priority given to SRD projects over others because of our working relationships.
Thank you. Director Shepherd.
Thanks to the chair. I'm generally in favor of the recommendations as well, because it seems the most efficient way to deal with the number of assessments that need to be done. But just a couple of minor questions. Is what the SERD spends on archaeological permits, is that published anywhere? Like, is it all? Yeah, it's all done in different projects, but is there a sort of central area where it's reported? And secondly, can the director describe, or maybe it's not the place to ask, but the cost-efficient measures that they're exploring, could he describe more of them in detail? Thanks.
When it comes to money, I look at our CFO.
Thank you, Chair. The information related to what we would pay in situ would be in our statement of financial information published. It'll be published in April to show what we've spent in 2025. So that particular requirement is based on our standards, anything over $25,000. So the cumulative amount, it wouldn't detail each amount. Also, our procurement process, procurement policies, if there's anything over $100,000, those components would be included in the standard protocol for the board to approve contracts over that amount. So
I'm just going to follow up that question because it appears that we spend more and more money on permits of various sorts for various things. Do we track that in any way that we can kind of add up the bureaucratic costs of increasing requirements from different acts and different ministries?
I think you'd want to put some qualifiers to it because every scope of every project is very different. So you'd want to understand what you're trying to measure and measure it against. Again, all this information is in our statement of financial information. So it is an increasingly significant cost to the regional district.
Thank you. Oh, I beg your pardon. Second half of the question.
Sorry, the second half of the question was what cost-efficient measures would you be looking at? Thanks.
Thank you. One of the, I think that's a scope that would need to be defined in consultation with our consultant as well as the different First Nations. And the reason why I say different First Nations is there are two primary First Nations with interest in the area, Sechelt and Squamish, and their approach towards the type of assessments and when it's needed and the scope is different. So that's also one thing that we would like to explore further. With respective and interest, are there ways that we can work together differently so that we don't have to do certain work on each of the permits, but maybe get more area-based focused or other ways of doing assessments.
Thank you. I'm looking around. Oh, Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to make a motion to accept the recommendation.
It's on the floor already.
Is it already here? No, I
Or
don't
was
think
it?
so.
I beg your pardon, that was previous
Yeah.
go round. All right, you're moving the motion.
I'm moving the motion on page 18 to
And
accept the recommendations.
Awesome, I saw a seconder. All right, have we exhausted our curiosity? I think we have. Calling the question, all those in favor? And that passes. Thank you very much. We have no communications, no new business. We have no in-camera. We do?
Yes.
Sorry. Oh, yeah, sorry. EAS and camera. I knew we had one. I couldn't remember whether. All right. In that case, I would like to move that the public be excluded from attendance at the meeting in accordance with Section 91K of the Community Charter. And seconded. Thank you all in favor? Okay, we go in camera.